We can keep our fields clean for so many weeks. We can live with some more weeds, except for the seed production, but yield reductions are not going to happen.
Late season, for sure. Of course, in weed world, in the weed science arena, IPM has virtually disappeared. I mean, like, I'm sure regulators and the IPM folks don't want to hear that, but the concept of thresholds and everything else, or what's the threshold on a resistant pigweed? I mean, if it produced 500,000 seeds, I mean, so it's a zero threshold.
Right.
And so when I first started 21 years ago, we had a program called WeedSoft, and it was University of Nebraska was the lead. There was about 10 universities, and we developed thresholds based on what weeds would cause yield loss in different crops. Corn and soybeans is what we focused on. But basically, it was like a farmer could, okay, I went out to my field and I scouted, and I have 5 giant foxtails that are this size and 2 water hemp that are this size, and whatever. They put per meter squared or whatever the value was, punch that in, and they would get, okay, well, you do need to treat or you don't need to treat. It's not going to be worthwhile. There's no economic injury. The economic injury level has not been met, and all that. All of that went away when we started getting really glyphosate resistance, and then we started getting multiple resistance. The whole idea of thresholds and any kind of IPM concepts has virtually disappeared because we can't stand to have a weed out there that's going to produce 500,000 seed. That's some proportion of that's going to be resistant, and then we got a whole new problem next year, or even a worse problem. So.
Well, I've seen cucumber 5 inches tall having 2 or 3 cucumbers on them.
Oh yeah, they'll find a way to flower.
Even at the end of the year, here they are still reproducing, and that's something that I've noticed. It seems like we've had a shift in weeds. I see a lot more cucumbers than I used to. Is that just me?
I think we're
poor management?
So cucumber has always been a Missouri weed. We're proud of it. It's in our how we got our show me motto, right?
That's right, is it?
Yeah.
Land of cucumbers.
I come from a land of cucumbers. I would agree with you. I think we are starting to see cucumbers kind of make a reappearance. I don't know why yet. That's another one of those shifts we're talking about.
Well, rainfall patterns could do that too, couldn't they?
Mm-hmm.
Where these big rains, long periods of dry, cucumbers got a big old root system. I think it's probably very drought tolerant.
Absolutely.
What we haven't talked about much, though, is pasture weeds. And sometimes you see a lot of weeds in pastures. Mm-hmm. And so we got grass pasture. Okay, we know we can put a broadleaf herbicide, but we also have our clovers out there. Mm-hmm. Where's the trade-off on that?
Yeah, so we've always joked around with growers. Every pasture meeting I go into, I show a picture of a nasty, weedy pasture and point to one clover that you found in the whole field and say, this is why the grower says I can't spray this. But anyway, yeah, so that's the number one deterrent or whatever word you want to use that would keep a grower from applying. We've heard it over and over all throughout the years is they don't want to eliminate their legumes, and I get it. So good news for them. Although I don't want to come across as like this is some kind of new savior product or anything like that. But it looks like next year there's a product that is going to be available from Corteva that will be the first herbicide, at least that we have, that has some broadleaf weed activity and is written on the label, and our research would back that up. That's safe on white clover and annual Aespidisa. So in other words, you could spray it over white clover or annual Aespidisa, not red clover, not any other legume that you want to enter into that sentence. But it hasn't fully been approved yet, so but it is expected to be approved. We've been talking about it for years, as far as we've had it to do some research on, but it just has not. They said about 3 years ago that it was going to come, and so I don't know what's going on, but the approval process hasn't happened until now. But they expect that it's going to happen next year. And so I'll just say that, yeah, it's got some opportunities. I think we shouldn't get carried away with the marketing. But we did trials for 2 years at a student grant co that looked at some pasture weed control research with that product versus electrocution, which I think has a fit in pastures in particularly, versus weed wiping, the old stuff. And we can get weed control without killing clovers in either of those other ways. So there are alternatives. But of course, if you go out there with a Grazon P+D, which is very, very common in the state, or whatever, just pick your product, Duracor, you name it, it's going to kill your legumes, and that's what growers don't want for sure.
But if you get a handle on these other weeds, then you can reintroduce your legumes.
That's what we try to teach.
Right.
Just, hey, let's get the weeds under control. You can get those back into the system. And some people listen to us, some people don't.
Well, and like your red clovers are short-lived perennials anyway. They don't last more than 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
So you got to oversee it again. Yep. So it's not always going to be there. But electrocution, is that good against our annual weeds or our perennial weeds?
Annuals.
Annuals. Okay.
It works. There's a outfit in Sedalia that sells them called the Weed Zapper. Obviously it has its limitations as far as it's kind of hazardous. And I think the biggest boom they have is a 30-foot boom. But so we evaluated in soybeans first, and I don't think we're there yet in soybeans, but we did show that it'll kill water hemp, it'll kill annual weeds. And then I always thought from the beginning, hey, this has to have a fit in pasture. So we went to like 8 different pastures around the state of Missouri for 2 seasons. He's finished that project now, and we're writing it all up. But cocklebur, it will completely kill annual weeds, and even some of our ironweed it's done very well on. That's a perennial. It doesn't do very good on things like honey locust and things like that. And so and bull thistle, it did really well on that. So
kind of some of the worst ones.
Yeah. So it has a fit, I think, and it can control some of our species, but it's just like anything else. Just like I would say with a herbicide, don't think it's going to go out there and just kill everything, because it doesn't. But it could definitely help. And you don't have any, as long as you got a height differential between the fescue and the clover and the weed, which we have found that the best timing in this is like August, late July and August, when the fescue's kind of in that summer slump, and the weeds actually are usually growing or at least showing really well above the forage canopy. And as long as you have that height differential, it's really pretty good.
Where our wiping with a glyphosate or something would be okay for the other perennials. Yeah,
so it's interesting you say that, because I didn't expect necessarily to find this result, but we had so those other experiments I talked about were just kind of general broadleaf in pasture experiments. We had another totally separate experiment, which was just on Johnson grass in pasture, two locations, 2 years. And the best by far treatment was weed wiping with Roundup. And electrocution's probably not going to be your answer on Johnson grass. The herbicides that you might be able to spray in pastures, which are few, for Johnson grass, Facet and some other things like that have, controlling a grass in the grass is hard.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I mean, and then trying to control Johnson grass in fescue is even harder. So there's only a couple of things that are even remotely labeled for use in that situation, and they did not perform as well as Weed Wiper with Roundup.
Well, could I put some of these other pasture herbicides in a Weed Wiper and try to get some of my
all in the same pass? Sure, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I could try to control them that way. One thing I noticed at home is after we get our hay and we start getting some late summer rains, the yellow foxtail starts coming up. Mm-hmm. Now, I've just went back and reclipped my pastures.
It is, well, that's good. I mean, I think that's better than nothing. Some growers say, well, if I didn't have foxtail out there at that time of year, I wouldn't have anything,
Right.
And we just graze it or we depend on it or whatever, but it's
we're overgrazing then.
Yeah, it is. It's what a lot of our pastures turn into. I still have trouble viewing it as a forage. I think it's a weed, and you might want to check if that is yellow foxtail, because we're starting to find this other species called knotroot foxtail.
Oh, really?
Which is a perennial foxtail that looks just like yellow. And so if you pull it up, now I doubt everybody has knotroot foxtail everywhere. I think most of it is yellow foxtail, but we have seen a knotroot foxtail coming up from the south and become. We've found it in about 4 or 5 counties. It has a seed head. It looks just like it. The leaves are a little different appearance, but the main thing you can do is it's got these knotty, short rhizomes. It is a perennial, and it's much more difficult to control.
I go by the flat stem.
Yeah, it's going to have that too.
Okay, yeah. So it has that. The other thing I see a lot is hemp dogbane. Mm-hmm. I know at first everybody thought, oh, well, we got milkweed. No, that's not milkweed. That's hemp dogbane.
Yeah, and that's terribly difficult to control. It's pretty tough. It's I don't know that we've never electrocuted it, but I doubt electrocution would do much on it. It requires a pretty expensive herbicide regime. So I would not let that one get out of hand for sure.
Mechanical means about the.
Yeah, I mean, if you have the time, yeah, that would.
Okay. I've heard farmers say, I didn't have a weed issue till I bought some hay from somebody and they brought in the weeds. That can happen, can't it?
It can. Yeah, sure. Yeah. When we were starting to see Palmer go into different areas of the state that it never was before, 1 or 2 of those cases we did track down. It came in hay from another state. Also, we've found it in some pollinator planting seed and things like that. We have found some foreign seeds in those mixes, so you might want to watch out for that. But yeah, it is certainly possible, although I think growers probably use that excuse a little too much, quite frankly. But I think it is possible that you can get weeds that come in with your hay. So you need to be looking out for where'd you buy it from, stuff like that.
I know one time I was offered some seedling year alfalfa, but had a lot of weeds in it, and I declined because I didn't want some new weeds coming in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
How about manures? Because it seems like the fields that we put manure on, we have a lot of weeds because they can live through all this, can't they?
Yeah.
Through the gut of the animal.
Yeah. Well, the verdict's still out in my mind. I mean, like, I looked into that, a little bit of that research years ago because I wanted to do a project. We turned out we never did do a project, but there are some weeds that definitely can survive the whole rumen process and pass through the animal, and they're still viable. The research shows that. The research also shows there's some others that are not supposed to survive that process. So I think there's way more that needs to be done in that area because, as you said, some farmers say it came in my hay. I have heard the same thing from maybe like organic growers or others. Hey, I bought this compost or this manure from such and such. I never had this weed until, so I guess the point is be looking out and being aware of everything that you're bringing onto your farm. kind of going off here on the sidebar, but the biggest complaint among that we're seeing is really, I'm finding that my Hort folks aren't as familiar with this topic and issue, but people buying manure or straw or compost or all of the above that actually has herbicide residue in it, and then they use that in their garden and get symptoms of herbicide injury. And this is new to a lot of people, but it's actually the number one thing that I hear year in and year out from our Hort kind of counterparts about vegetable injury in hoop houses or greenhouses or just homeowner gardens and stuff like that.
So the hay could still have the residual herbicides.
Absolutely. We did.
It's hard to imagine.
Yeah. So
is a certain class that usually.
The most common are aminopyrrolid. And so if you look on these pasture herbicide labels, one of the first little infographics in the very beginning of the label is going to be all the things that you can't do with the treated forage or the manure and all of that. They've got these pretty little pictures and everything with like these circular things like don't do this and cross out and all that. I was talking to one of our horticulture specialists just a month ago about this issue, and it was kind of new to him. He didn't realize this, but we did this long time ago, but you can spray a hay bale, feed that hay bale. We did it to simulate a problem for some student learning. We fed that hay bale to steer. The grad students collected everything that came out.
The students did, yeah.
We then took that manure and put it all around in a garden, and all of those tomatoes and every other thing that we had out there, they crinkled up and just like they had been sprayed. I mean, it's just amazing.
Oh, wow.
So it survived that whole process. It's still persistent. And so in the real world, we actually see that happening with some homeowners and people that maybe aren't as familiar with herbicides or what the farmer's doing. They're just going to buy manure or compost or whatever, and they don't really realize the implications or the possibilities.
So you really need to know how that was managed, don't you?
Yeah. And so one of the guy that I was talking about that was this was new to him and he didn't realize this. He goes, well, do you think the composting people know about all this? And I was like, I don't know. I think they should. And he goes, well, there's whole conferences dedicated to composting. You should go there. And I'm like, well, this is not, I'm not, this is a pretty common problem. It's pretty known within the herbicide world, but apparently it's not very well known on the other side of the world of people that are actually using the products and everything.
Well, as you know, I was doing composting at one time, and they said 131 degrees for 72 hours. Mm-hmm. That's probably not enough to kill or break down some of these compounds, is it?
Apparently not, because it's a pretty huge problem. Enough of a problem that these companies are really putting it first and foremost on their labels because they've gotten so many things they've had to pay out on.
Oh, yes. Well, you had research several years ago on how migratory birds can also bring weeds.
Yeah.
Is that
waterfowl? Yeah.
How did that work out?
It showed. We still get questions about that from like Canada of all places. I get 2 or 3. I guess because the geese are migrating up there or something. I don't know all their patterns, but we prove that on their stopovers, so they come down and then they go back up. But whenever they're stopping in Missouri and our waterfowl hunters are collecting those birds, our project was basically hunter donated waterfowl carcasses, and we examined their stomach contents. And so on the way back up from the south, they had been down there and they're in farmer fields, and even though it's been harvested, pretty good chance that they're probably going to pick up some Palmer pigweed seed. And that was true because we found Palmer amaranth seed in those waterfowl that were migrating back north. And so we attribute that to part of the spread. particularly in bottomlands and things like that.
So when they defecate, they actually put the seeds
They're
back
leaving
in?
it.
Oh, wow.
And I'm pretty sure that's viable too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So was it just Palmer or was it other weeds?
Oh, we found some other weeds too, but we were most concerned at that time about Palmer because, like I said, and certainly this is more true for states north of Missouri. We did not used to have Palmer outside of certain areas in Missouri. Mostly you get to Cape Girardeau, it disappears. There was some along the southwest edge a little bit coming over from Kansas, but hey, you get up into Macon or something, you shouldn't be seeing
right.
it, and we were finding it. So, yeah.
So, well, lastly, how about I know your student did a big program on deer repellent.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that didn't work.
No. So I think we can put that one to rest. And, there was, so I'll say this, he just showed me he's working on analyzing everything from 4 experiments across 2 years. There were certain times where we saw a little bit of deer browsing suppression earlier in the season, but it ain't much to write home about. And so for the most part, like 80% or more of our valuations show that the deer repellent did not reduce deer browsing compared to the same plots that were not treated with deer repellent. So unfortunate. It didn't look like that's going to have much of a role for our soybean farmers. So we carry on and we look for other ways.
Right. Because these were things that smelled bad. And
they're big in the homeowner market. And hey, I'm not going to say if you go out there every week and spray your grapes or apple trees in your yard or something, I'm not here to say that they're not going to work, but we sprayed up to 3 sequential times in soybean at 2-week intervals, and
still
didn't work. So
you probably have such a large area to do. Whereas maybe in your yard you could go somewhere. You'll go to your neighbors and feed there, because I know with deer sometimes you may see 30 in a soybean field. They can be a lot of devastation there. All right. Well, Kevin, this has been great. I think we've covered a lot of subjects, and both not only for the grain farmer, but also for the homeowner, the pasture, the livestock. Weeds are a big issue.
Well, we're a one-stop shop here at Mizzou Weed Science.
That's right. But it's also, when we want to depend on herbicides, it is a one-way street.
Yeah.
I mean, Mother Nature just keep
it wins.
They win.
Resistance is futile, whatever you want to say.
That's right. But we want to be able to keep what we have.
Yeah.
And just follow the label. Label's a law.
Yep.
Just remember that. And look at,
we'd love to see more farmers get on board with what we're preaching about doing something else. I'm not saying to go away from herbicides. Herbicides are going to be a part of our future. Everything I see says we got to do something besides just herbicides, an integrated program, integrated weed management. So whatever that means for you, could mean between row tillage of all things. Nobody's going to do that, but I mean, but if it is an integrated part and it's not just placing all the pressure on one thing, which is herbicides, we're more likely to have a future with those herbicides.
Well, I remember when no-till first started, we were looking at cultivating between rows, but still try to keep a residue on the ground,
right?
And take care of the weeds. And all right, well, and I think the final thing, I remember a weed scientist 40 years ago told me, when we till to make a good seed bed for our crop, the weeds like it too.
Yeah.
So we can reduce that somewhat. All right. Well, this has been for Tim's Take podcast. So we'll see you next time. Bye.